Well, the Salvation Army's been around since about 1865, and we have a dual mission. One is to serve those who are in need, and the other is to share the good news of Jesus.
Okay, so it's one part religion, one part charitable. I know the two things aren't mutually exclusive.
Yeah, we think of it as one thing.
One and the same. Okay. How about major programs, Brian?
Major programs, it depends on where you are. Most of the places we have after-school programs, we have sports programs for the kids, we have daycares, we have feeding programs, we have a couple of shelters in this area. There's a lot going on. Rehab centers.
Oh, really?
Yeah, yeah.
So if we went back to the original foundation of the Salvation Army, not to spend too much time on it, but was it more of a one-dimensional mission back then?
It started out that way. It started out as just church stuff. And one day the founder was out with his son. He saw some guys by a barrel warming their hands, and he said, "What's going on?" He said, "Well, Dad, they live there." And he said to him, "Do something." And it kind of started the Salvation Army doing charitable work.
And all of these major programs over the years have sprung from that.
Yeah, yeah. We're kind of tasked to say what's needed where you're at, and then find a way to do it.
And when you say where you're at, you mean in the state of Connecticut?
If you're in Connecticut, if you're in China, wherever you are.
Wherever you are. And you're all over the world.
Yes.
You are all over the world. Okay. Just for your information, Brian, I went to Stop and Shop the other day. Not that I visited frequently, but I did little shopping. And I came out of the door, and there was the Salvation Army kettle, and I made a donation.
Awesome.
And just, I'm curious, where did the donations that are taken up at Christmas time go?
Those will stay in the local area to support programs. Now, I know you and I talked, I think that was in Meriden.
Right.
There's a Salvation Army right in Meriden that supports their programs with the elderly, with the feeding. All of it will go right there.
Okay. So everything that's given at the local community level winds up on a dollar-for-dollar basis going to the local community?
Almost.
Almost.
We hand 10% upstream so that
to Salvation Army, the
headquarters.
The headquarters.
Yeah, so that can run as well.
And where's the headquarters?
For us, it's in Hartford.
It's in Hartford. Okay. So how can people help the Salvation Army?
Well, there's a lot of ways. The first is like you did when you see the bell ringer out there, empty your pockets of change. You know, don't take that home with you.
Actually, use my wallet, actually.
Good.
Because I'm a big believer in the Salvation Army.
Great. So that's the first way. You can send a check in, you can donate food, you can donate toys, or you can come and volunteer.
Did I see something on the website that you could actually donate a car?
Yes, you can donate cars. We have an auction lot that will sell those. Those actually go to support our rehab center.
Okay. So in terms of the food and in terms of the clothes, do those all remain locally as well, Brian?
The food and the toys will go to kids that are right there in the neighborhood. The clothes run through our rehab center, and that's how we provide that program. All the clients at the rehab center are there for free. And the way we do that is with donated clothing and cars.
Now, how many people do you have working in your Salvation Army office?
At my center, there's probably 12 to 15.
12. And is that like full-time permanent staff?
Some of them are full and some are part. Because at my center we have a daycare that runs all day, so they're all full-time. We have an after-school program that's part-time in the afternoon. And we also have a sports program that's part-time in the afternoon.
Oh, for goodness sake. So of that breakdown of the 12 people, how many of them are part-time versus full-time, just out of curiosity?
I would say 5 are full-time. Well, 7 are full-timers because I have office staff as well.
Okay, do you expand during the seasonal?
We absolutely do.
And you bring on part-time people?
We bring in seasonal. So a lot of the people who are out ringing the bells for my center are being paid to do so.
Right.
We try to get people who are local, who need the work, who want to do it, and then I'll give them 40 hours a week during the holiday season.
Okay, and just out of curiosity, I would imagine, I mean, if I were to look at the donation curve and the work curve, at Christmas time it must look like this, that curve.
Oh, yeah, absolutely, all the way around.
So what percentage of the people who are doing work for the Salvation Army, as of this point in time, the Christmas holiday season, are your regular and part-time employees versus volunteers, and how many of them would that be?
Oh, we are highly dependent on volunteers. So at this time of year, say on a day-to-day basis, it's probably mostly paid staff, but when we serve a meal, like Hartford's going to take they're going to deliver 700 meals, and that's going to be volunteer driven. So we may have 50, 60, 70 volunteers driving around dropping those off.
So do you run a shelter too?
There's 2 shelters in this area. There's Marshall House in Hartford, and there's a men's shelter in New Britain.
So essentially, you're going 24/7. You're
Yeah,
going 7 days a week, 24
absolutely.
hours a day, listening to the kind of programs that you have.
Yeah, absolutely. The rehab center in Hartford also has about 100 people who live there full time.
Okay. So if someone wanted to volunteer their time, tell the audience how you volunteer your time.
Well, they could call 1-800-543-8400. That's the state office, and they would refer them to something that's close by.
And they offer to volunteer their time, and they're sent to an office, and they're interviewed.
They have to go through a brief background check to make sure that they're okay to work with children. That's a big issue with us, that we want to protect the kids. So once they pass that background check, then they come in and we put them to work.
Okay. And you're pretty much satisfied with what happens with the swelling of the volunteer workforce then?
It's necessary.
It's necessary.
We want it.
Is it usually, I mean, if we were to segment your volunteers, I'm just curious, do you get a lot of young people in addition to older people?
The bigger the event, the younger the people that come. If it's small things, it's usually an older crowd that will participate in that.
Okay. So tell me, how is the economy affecting nonprofits in general and the Salvation Army specifically?
Well, it's kind of the same way it's affecting everybody. There's less coming in, but there's more that needs to go out. So our demand at some of our centers is up by 50%. At some of the food pantries is doubled, while the donations are down about 10% this year.
And you're defining demand as what? Money demand?
People walking in saying, "I need help with this, with food, with rent, with power bills."
Okay, but you don't give out things like, I mean, you're not giving out cash or debit cards or.
We don't like to give people cash. So say if you came in and said, "Well, I need a security deposit so I can move into this apartment. Can you help me?" The check would go to the landlord, not to the individual. Yeah.
I'm pausing, Brian, because I'm a little bit flabbergasted by the amount of services that you have.
It's
I mean,
stunning.
you run a full spectrum of services. I'm just curious. We got about 2 or 3 minutes left. I'm just curious. What is your background?
Before I came in, I was an accountant. And my wife was a registered nurse.
Okay, is she in the Salvation Army with you?
In the Salvation Army, husband and wife are both.
Are together?
Yes.
In other words, a husband can't go in without the wife and vice
Cannot
versa.
do it. Yeah, absolutely.
So both of you are college educated and professionally trained. Because I was listening to the way you were describing things, and I cannot imagine that there isn't some amount of education involved in the occupation of the Salvation Army.
It's a challenging position. What happens is you go through a year and a half of seminary that's about 24 hours a day, it seems like, when you're doing it. And they throw you into the pool and see which end you swim out of and say, "Oh, that's what you are." And they let you do what you're good at.
Within the Army?
Within the Army. There's enough choices that they can put you someplace.
So they look for your transferable skill sets, and that's where you're placed.
Yeah.
Just out of curiosity, with the economy being what it is, if anybody in the audience was interested, are there openings in the Salvation Army?
Well, we employ a lot of people. There are openings you got to go check with your local center.
Okay.
We also put job postings out. We have everything from entry level to advanced degree positions that become available.
Really?
But whether there's any available today, I couldn't really tell you that.
Okay.
We're in 115 countries, so we definitely have some jobs available somewhere.
Now, do you move a lot, Brian, just out of curiosity?
My wife and I haven't. We were 10 years in Stanford. We've been here for a year and a half. I believe the average is about every 4 or 5 years.
You move to some other location?
Yes.
Now, do you gain rank as you go along?
You gain rank by staying in. So at 15 years, I'll become a major.
Okay.
And then I'll be a major.
So if I ever had you back, would you ever be a general someday, Brian? Or?
You know what? I don't know. There's only one in the whole world, and I don't think I'm in line for that one.